Hey folks, MasakoX here. It's quite obvious that there are a lot of characters that Dragon Ball can say have a pretty good fan base. Naturally, if you're a Saiyan, you tend to be quite near the top of the DBZ food chain. And if you're a human and don't have some kind of cybernetic enhancement to your name or the capability of time travel, then you tend to get left at the bottom in the wake of other characters. Why does that have to be the case though? There are tons of stories out there which have either been left without a conclusion, or their conclusion, the one we did get, was done so shoddily, really badly put together just to appease people, it just wasn't good enough. Krillin's awakening before the Tournament of Power. Where did that go, I hear you ask? So today, I wish to talk about 11 characters whom I think deserve the chance to get their own movie, or at least some kind of OVA, given that Dragon Ball Super Superhero had done a pretty good job at the box office, and it wasn't focused on Saiyans primarily. It was mainly focused on the Earth characters and Gohan, whom I still think might have been looking at divorce papers had he not been pulled up by the chops by Big Green. You can check out my recent video on that topic, by the way, for our theories about that chestnut, and of course more about Piccolo. But since Gohan and Piccolo have had their movie now, they're not going to be on this list. They've been taken care of, and quite well too. Especially when you see most publications giving Superhero 4 stars out of 5. Now these characters may seem a little obvious one but to talk about, or they may seem unexpected. And just because I state these ideas doesn't mean we may not do anything with them in the future. Or we might have done something. Also, this is in no particular order. We kick things off with Beerus. Beerus, Masako? He already had a movie, and he's around a lot of the time anyway. That's very true. Battle of Gods was the movie that opened up Dragon Ball into the Super era and a whole new way of thinking. The movie doing a better job than the series, by the way. However, I'm talking about Beerus, the character, not the deity. Wouldn't it be cool to see the cat and his brother before they were destroyers? Living out their lives on their home planet before they got the call up for universes 6 and 7 respectively? Were they together in one realm and then had to be split up? Who was the previous deity of Universe 7 before Beerus who worked with Whis? This has been a topic in many fan stories, like Kakame, which tend to enhance the Egyptian connection with Beerus, as he's not just modelled on one of Toriyama's pet cats, but also on the ancient culture with his sphinx-like features. If we solidified that into lore, that would be quite epic. It would be very neat to see if Beerus and Champa were mere waifs perhaps, they were street rats, they were really at the bottom of the rung, and that their rise to power came from a benevolent hand or source. This is something that Hav and I will definitely want to tackle in the future. Maybe after Revelation F is all wrapped up. Our next audio series perhaps. Come on, this is too good a story to pass up. More lore for Dragon Ball? Yes, please. Every time new lore is added that augments what we already have in Dragon Ball, it tends to be quite good. Except the dilution of fusion, of course. That means Gogeta and Vegeta are practically the same. Now, this one's a twofer. The Android twins. Having 17 and 18 going off on an adventure to fully put to rest the Red Ribbon Army, as a possible sequel to Superhero. After all, Kami may still be out there possibly, trying one last time to bring his old company back from the brink of oblivion, for real this time. Yes, he might not be personally strong enough to do anything about this, but what he did have was a brain, and very good YouTuber skills, as well as his own assets, that could lead to something pretty cool. A completely perfect Cell Max, something that Magenta never got to see, realizing his boss's dream, Kami. Yes, it might be a little mediocre to pedal out the same kaiju monster again, but this time, it wouldn't be identical. It would be the perfect article, seeing a perfect Cell Max. You could also have potentially Goku and Vegeta having to go up against it, something which is maybe dangled in front of us for the entire movie that it could happen, the threat of it becoming real. In the meantime, 17 and 18 are piecing together clues to get to Kami, whilst also piecing together their own time before being converted into androids, when they were teenage delinquents. That time in their lives has been left quite open-ended, and it would be fascinating to see how they wound up being picked by Gero to be androids, and the world that was left behind them. More of their backstory. Were they compliant with Gero, or were they abducted? All of this would be them finally getting closure with that time in their lives. Of course, they wouldn't be going into this blindly. Hedo, keen to right the wrongs of his grandfather, would offer them the chance to be reverted back to regular humans since he has the talent to do so, but they choose to decline, which surprises the young scientist. They have accepted that what happened to them had happened. They are androids, that's part of who they are. But 17 does ask for some cheeky upgrades and 18 goes along with it, wanting to keep her husband honest. The start of a possibly wonderful friendship between them and Hedo might be born, whilst also drawing a line in the sand of the modern Red Ribbon Army arc. Next up is Gine. Yes, I know, I did a series about Gine going to Earth instead of her son, and that it hasn't been touched since the 500k special. I am trying to find a good location for the story, that's why it's taking so long. Really make it stand out from the other videos I have on the channel. Trying to find a good place in my area is quite tricky without having to fork out tons of money. That being said, the original premise that Hav and I came up with, Meg, is something that needs to be mentioned. Gine, the mother of Goku. Doesn't it just sound right? You got the Bardock special, Bardock father of Goku. Wouldn't it be cool to have a juxtaposed movie about her taking care of Goku and getting to know more about Saiyan society? After all, the Broly movie was excellent in that department, demonstrating to us that Saiyans were more than just mercenaries and had a functional civilization to back them up, made up of different occupations and roles. If we could see where Gine started out, in our case the abandoned child of a female Saiyan warrior, it could really throw some intrigue and mystique as to her origins. There are ideas from various sources, some of them connected to Toriyama, that Gine may have used to be part of Bardock's squad, but was ultimately let go due to her power being very weak for a Saiyan, and her heart also not really in it, killing people. I can imagine Bardock being given an ultimatum from Zarbon and Dodoria along the lines of, "You either deal with that monkey runt, or we will." And so therefore Bardock chucks her into the kitchen so that Frieza's henchmen don't kill her. Anything with those two, Guinea and Bardock, would do wonders in the box office because, hey, the Saiyan connection. I am aware that I tried to avoid Saiyans in my original premise for this video, but Guinea is so loved in the fandom that to not include her would be a shame. She is not a conventional Saiyan. Let me know in the comments, by the way, about what other characters you'd like to see get their own movie perhaps, and maybe we'll make another video in the foreseeable future for the people's choices. Then we have Zalama. Well, who's Zalama, Masako? Well, that's what half of the audience will be saying, and the other half will be going, "Oh god, Masako, not Zalama again! Stop with the theories, you and Hav are getting ridiculous!" Well, that's kind of up in the air, both of those statements. But from what we can gather from Super, Zalama is the god of creation, and the maker of the Super Dragon Balls. Could possibly the first Namekian. Not all Namekians and Dragon Balls are implied to be the remnants of he and the Super Dragon Balls. Not much else is known, but wouldn't it be amazing to see the Dragon World right at the point of its creation? The Big Bang, when everything started? Hav and I did a little test what if a few months back, link up top by the way, about how he would look and behave with the GP and Zeno during the Tournament of Power had Ultra Instinct been a conduit to get him back into this realm instead of its own transformation technique or whatever. So I can imagine bringing him into a more standard role and see what it was like on the daily, how he formed the Dragon Balls, and what caused him to disappear. Was it a case of he turning his back on society? Did Zeno trap him in an erased universe orchestrated by the GP? The only clue we do have is that Super Shenron and the Super Dragon Balls still exist, which imply, based on what we know from modern Namekians, that Zalama, or their creator, is not dead. They exist somewhere. Otherwise, the balls would be inert. That's what we'd like to see. The beginning of everything. Now, speaking of the past, the origins of the Galactic Patrol are next. Masako, we don't care about the Galactic Patrol though. But you might care about Beerus, the angelic recruit, who's one of their best patrollers. We already have a manga that Toriyama came up with about Jarko, which does a very good job about showcasing the routine of the patrol and what they are from the start. Something also that Toriyama seems to enjoy making and giving birth also to a minus. But I'd like to go back even further, to when the patrol was formed. You know, sort of like the King's Man sort of thing. Beerus is an angel, and his powers were pretty high for mortals. In fact, a lot higher. But he also had to keep up appearances thanks to the cosmos, taking a dim view on him using his angelic powers offensively or excessively. As a result, he would have to limit them, only using his powers to defend people, and rely heavily on his standard issue gear. I would love to see what made him fall in love with mortal life in the first place, him being effectively now the antithesis of Zamasu. That's a nice little contrast I saw. Did he set up the patrol, or was he one of the founding members? Nobody really knows. He's been around for so long, and others really don't know where he was. They just remember seeing Beerus all the time. Well, of course he'd been around for a long time, he's an angel. But to get to see that and see Jarko also on his first day would be a fun little interlude, and further establish one of the more recent additions to the Dragon Ball Super lore. Now when it comes to said lore, some of the most important examples of it come from Master Roshi. Although he is not as relevant these days, and technically the reason why Dragon Ball Super is banned from Argentinian TV, Roshi's past has been explained somewhat, but we could always do with more. We see Mutaito, his master, but we don't get to see more of their inner workings over their relationship, or Roshi's rise to prominence after securing the training from Korin and imbibing the sacred water. I'd love to see that expanded and more behind it. How did those two work together, Korin and Roshi, given his personality? Then there's also Shen, the founder of the Crane School. They used to work together as Mutaito's pupils. We could have a Saruman Gandalf vibe here, and the movie could culminate in the first conquering of King Piccolo. Not only would we have a connection to the established lore, but we could then plump up the origin part of it, and get to see a more naive and inexperienced Roshi harden himself up in ways we had not imagined before. We don't have to see him as lecherous every single waking second. And also find out more about one of the most critical characters that we barely saw. Without Mutaito, we would not have Roshi. Grandpa Gohan, the Crane and Turtle schools, Dragon Ball would be nothing like it is today. What we do know though, is that we would love to see some more of young Roshi, and how he found himself meeting Korin and going from there. Now we touched upon the Crane School just now, so what better thing to do than to get to know more of it? Seeing the Dragon Ball story from another point of view, and not necessarily from the good guy's side, from Shen's point of view. As far as this movie is concerned, the Crane School are the good guys, and we are seeing Ten Shinhan and Chaozu as the heroes, carrying out their tasks and training for more valiant reasons. Or at least that's how it's been spun for them. After all, Lupin III is a great example of glamorizing thievery and seeing things from the typical villain's point of view instead. Granted, it's not a good thing to praise crime, but what it does show is that despite their less than ideal professions, they're not bad people. It's just what they do and happen to do very well. That applies to our double act here. Shen is seen as a more virtuous and sage advisor here because things have been spun. And you could also have an Easter egg where maybe you see a young Krillin trying his best to join the Crane School only to then be chewed out by Shen because he's trying to bribe him with smut rags. He got it mixed up about who liked that sort of thing. So Shen goes, "Go and try that disgusting trick on the Turtle School." To which he does, and the rest is history. Either way, this story would be how Ten Shinhan met his vampire psychic friend, the view of Shen as a more noble person, and possibly expand more on Yurin from Dragon Ball Super. I still stand by her character after many forgot about her, as this could be a vital connection to Ten Shinhan's past, and a potential friendship for him going forward. He really does need some friends, and it really needs character development for the most serious Dragon Ball team member. So yes, going back in time is a common trope here, but this time we're going to stick with the present. Well, how do we do that? Well, with Tarble, Vegeta's brother, who debuted in the 2008 special and showed that animated Dragon Ball wasn't quite dead in the water yet. Introduced to give Vegeta some more backstory, he didn't even make it to the end of his own special before being pushed into the background with the other non-fighting characters. In fact, he barely spoke in the second half of it. With Kaba effectively taking over his role as Vegeta's apprentice/idolizer, what do you do with the original example? Well, do your own thing. Yes, Tarble is a Saiyan, but he's not your conventional typical Saiyan. He's not strong, he's not battle ready like his elder brother. He was simply cast out from Saiyan society for being too weak and soft in the eyes of King Vegeta, his father. Why? Where is he now? How did he meet Guinea, his wife? I'm sure they're very happy together though. What is his life like? And what kind of stories could you have with Tarble that don't require world or universe breaking powers? Well, just do what the original Dragon Ball did well. Lower the scope a little bit, but make the plot just as engaging. Haven't I introduced the character Captain Yunao in part 22 of Nappa Turned Good? And I know that some of you out there are a little frustrated and really flummoxed at this sudden introduction and dispatching of this character. Well, let's put it back in. Tarble has to deal with space pirates, but having to use other means in order to stop them other than brute strength. Use his Saiyan brain for something else other than simple fisticuffs, because we got that with other people who can do that better. Don't worry about that, just expand the story and show some of the technical and intellectual expertise that Vegeta has and Tarble has. It's just a family thing, it's done in a different way. Last but by no means least is our boy Yamcha. This one's quite simple. How did he become a bandit and meet Poir? What gave him his love for baseball? Why is he scared of girls? Did he have a bad experience or something with them growing up? I mean, I can relate because I did. Either way, these are the facets of his character that could do with being enhanced a little bit. Not to mention the fact that people would really go and see it. Since, like Nicholas Latifi in F1, Yamcha has indefinite GOAT status in the fandom, simply because of the memes. Also, the case of being reincarnated as Yamcha, the manga by Dragon Garo Lee by the way, it's an excellent read. It's also a prime example of how anything with Yamcha on the cover and front and center is going to do well, by default. The latest Hero Saga also has Yamcha getting some female attention from one of Ios's warriors. Good for you, Yamcha. Can you see where I'm going here? Now, which characters would you like to see next? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. And I will see you in the next video. Catch you later!